Hey there, my name's Luke Spire, and joining me later will be Ruben Ball, Connor Hale, and helping us out with all the content was Sydney Tidwell. We are going to be covering Gap Incorporated, a company analysis. And for a quick introduction to Gap, uh, originally founded in 1969, originally focused on trendy casual wear with a mission to, quote unquote, bridge the generation gap through fashion. However, the company faced criticism for labor issues in its supply chain, including accusations of sweatshop labor and poor working conditions. But in response, Gap pivoted its strategy to include corporate social responsibility initiatives, CSR initiatives, launching programs like PACE in 2007 to support women in the garment industry. And today, their primary strategy falls under the strategic arena approach, emphasizing social responsibility and sustainability. This highlights their efforts to address equity, inclusion, opportunity, and climate issues, positioning them as a brand that does more than just sell clothes. Gap Incorporated also actively seeks new markets to drive growth. They operate in 40 countries and continue to explore further international expansion. This aligns with their global strategy to increase global sales and reach new customers. Now we're going to move on to the SWOT analysis, starting with strengths of Gap's strengths. One being they have a very diverse brand portfolio, meaning they carry more than just Gap, which many people don't realize. They carry Old Navy, Banana Republic, and Athleta, which is athletic wear. This covers a wide range of products and apparel. And another strength would be their brand recognition. Many people are familiar with the brand. It's very well known. And their operational efficiency in their warehouses, whether it's e-commerce or getting their products to the brick and mortar stores, that's very efficient. And some weaknesses, declining in-store sales is pretty obvious with e-commerce being more attractive, so you don't have to get to the store. You can just order online and ship to you, obviously. So sales in-store declining. And although the brand's very recognized globally, the perception of the brand is changing. A lot of people think it's kind of outdated clothing, not really trendy anymore. And they're really just too reliant on the American market, with most of their sales coming from America.
Good afternoon. My name is Ruben Ball, and I'll be going over the second part of the SWOT analysis and also the strategic concerns. Starting off with opportunities for Gap, we have technological advances with the introduction of AI and also the advancement of AI technologies. We see the ability for Gap to kind of integrate AI into more of its online presence, giving customers a more personalized experience and personalized ads, which can increase the loyalty of a particular customer and also kind of give Gap a loyal customer base. Another thing in technological advances is that Gap is also heavily invested in R&D and has invented new products, namely smart fabrics and waterless denim, which was a big hit with their target demographic, the younger generation. Moving on to the second point of opportunities is market expansion. Gap is a international company with stores in over 40 different countries. This allows them to bring in profit from all around the globe. Another big thing in market expansion is the online market. Just because Gap doesn't have a retail store in the country doesn't mean that they can't sell products to that particular country. Due to their online presence, customers can go online and buy Gap products and have it shipped to them. And lastly, for market expansion is loyalty programs. As I said before, loyalty programs gives Gap the ability to kind of keep a loyal customer basis and not have customers go to different brands. Moving on to the last point of opportunities is sustainability and inclusion. Gap values having a sustainable base, having ethical sources of their products, which is also another big boost to the target demographic they want. The younger generation values DEI and environmental stewardship, both which Gap does exceptionally well. Moving on to the threats of Gap that Gap has is namely market competition. In an industry such as the fashion retail industry, there is it's saturated with lots of different companies, lots of different corporations also, especially for Gap and Gap Inc., which has multiple different brands such as Gap itself, Old Navy, and Athletica. All three of them have very high competition. Just to name a few, in fast fashion, Zara and Shein, athletic wear, Nike and Adidas, and discount giants such as Amazon. Another big thing kind of driving market competition is the high buyer power base in the industry. And usually, since it's the end consumer buying the product, it means that the buyer kind of has low power. But due to the kind of behavior of the buyer looking for the best deal that they can find, it usually means that buyers usually flock to companies that have the lowest prices, which means that companies have to be competitive with their prices, which can also kind of drag down the profit margin of Gap. Another thing in market competition is the consumer behavior shifts. As I said before, the younger generation is kind of looking to get the best deal, so they don't really have a lot of loyalty to one particular brand. They're really just loyal to prices, I could say. And another thing is fashion trends. It's important for Gap to be cool and hip, especially when targeting the young generation. They need to make sure that they are on point with their fashion trends and can stay on point moving on to the future. Another thing for the threat is the economic conditions. With the supposed tariffs that may be coming in, this may increase the cost that Gap has to manufacture their clothes, and also it means that consumers might have less spending money to buy non-essential goods, so they might try to flock to companies that have the cheapest clothes, which means that Gap may have to evaluate the prices or risk losing customer bases. And lastly, for threats is the legal risk. For a company as big as Gap, there's always going to be risk to get in legal troubles. They need to make sure that they stay on the right side of the law with labor laws like minimum wage and environmental regulations. Any big kind of case against Gap can hurt their brand and in turn make customers kind of shy away from buying with them. Moving on to the strategic concern. One thing that we saw was Gap's reliance on brick and mortar stores. Although a lot of customers still shop at brick and mortar stores, the younger generation, being as tech savvy as it is, has kind of moved on to e-commerce. And also having a whole lot of brick and mortar stores means that there's high cost in maintaining those stores. They have to pay for the lease, they have to pay for the utilities, and they have to pay for the employees to man the stores. We think that Gap should probably focus on moving towards maybe a more e-commerce look, kind of reducing the cost of brick and mortar stores. And we also saw that Gap kind of relies heavily on US and Canada. And even though they're based in 40 other countries, most of their profits come from US and Canada. We think that they should kind of diversify their brand and their market, so that, say, if the US and Canada isn't doing so well, they have other countries that can bring in profits and keep them above the board. Going into what I said earlier, Gap has shown to have a kind of underdeveloped online presence. We think that in this day and age, they need to update their online presence, get more ads out there, get their name more online, so that the younger generation knows that if they go online, they can see Gap. Moving on to the second point, increased competition. As I said before, the retail fashion industry is heavily saturated with different companies. companies like Zara and Shein have kind of the similar demographics to Gap, and which means that they're kind of competing for the same customers. Gap needs to make sure that they stay kind of ahead of the trend and make sure that they have the maximum market share that they can have in that demographic. And one way they can do this is update their loyalty program with an increased use of AI, which can bring in more data-driven insights and have a more personalized feel to the customers, which may lead them to have a more loyal customer base. Lastly, we have brand perception. Gap obviously has a very good brand. They value ethical sourcing and DEI and inclusion. Gap itself needs to make sure that the consumer knows how good of a brand they are. They need to integrate things like sustainable cotton and water-saving manufacturing into branding, so that when customers buy from Gap, they know that they are buying from ethical sources. Another thing in brand perception is that Gap needs to make sure that they stay locked in and relevant to the young generation. In this industry, it's so easy to kind of fall out of place, out of culture, and out of fashion with the younger generation. They need to make sure that they stay in fashion trends. And one way to do this is have R&D focused on products that they know that their demographic, the young generation, will want. And that's all for strategic concerns. I'm going to hand it off to Connor for the recommendations. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Connor Hale, and I'm here talking about our traditional recommendation for Gap based on our company analysis and based on the strategic concerns we've previously outlined. Now, what we need to do is we need to diversify our strengths and skills to hedge against economic conditions. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, we need to keep our core strategy intact because this traditional recommendation, we have to keep it safe and consistent in the short term and set us up for success in the long term. Now, our core strategy has been working. Our business model is profitable. However, potential undiversifiable risks or things out of our control are liable to hurt our profits, such as a possible trade war, possible recession, things like that. All right, on to the moonshot recommendation. In order to not just survive in the upcoming, risky, uncertain marketplace, but to thrive in it, to take advantage of it, we need to evolve as a company to include a more versatile arsenal of brands and potential markets into a global corporation. This means we're going to pivot our core strategy to focus on the greater global marketplace instead of playing it safe with what our retailers have in the United States, which are profitable now, but overwhelming evidence suggests that it may not be profitable in the future, and much less very profitable. It will survive, possibly, but it might not be profitable. Things to do include building retails where our factories are. I mean, it just helps logistics, it helps save costs, and if there's a trade war going to happen, it's good to have feet on the ground wherever we can. In that same vein, retiring some old US retail stores in profit dry areas. This just makes sense to clean up our balance sheet a little bit. Now, this also means we're going shopping for brands to acquire. Now, our current brands, we have Old Navy and Banana Republic, which are kind of similar in their niche to Gap, and it's just all very homogenous. Athleta is good for athletic wear here, but they aren't exactly a punch above your weight kind of brand globally. Intermix is a great niche asset, but it's also not exactly versatile enough to really stand out on the global scene. So here are two companies I've projected to acquire: Gymshark from the UK and Cézanne from France. These two companies not just give us a broader, diverse area of styling and brand recognition in those countries, but they also specialize in things we lack as a company, being influencer marketing, online first approach, direct to consumer. These are two things I outlined earlier in our traditional recommendation that we need to do regardless. So these brands, these companies would be great assets to our lineup. And I think using that as a jumping off point, we can pivot to a greater global era of dominance.